regular meeting for the Board of Lane County Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. Welcome to everyone who's joining us in person here in Harris Hall and anyone watching online. We will just take a moment to see if there are any adjustments to the agenda from our administrator. None. To the board? None. Any emergency business this morning? No. Then we will move right into item 3, which is employee recognition. And this is an opportunity that we get to take a few moments to recognize and uplift the work of the folks who are implementing the many, many programs and delivering services to our community. So I'll turn it over to our administrator to introduce the item. Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners, and I'll welcome Chad Hoffman and Jeff Orlandini. You all know Jeff as our manager of waste management here in Lane County, and Chad is who we're recognizing today. Chad Hoffman is an environmental engineering specialist in our waste management division, and we're recognizing Chad in particular for the core behavior of passion to serve, and a recognition that Chad was selected as the Catalyst Award winner by the State Land Board. He was presented this award by Governor Kotek at an event in October. So a little bit about Chad, and then I'll ask Jeff if he wants to add a few things here. I had the opportunity several years ago. Do you remember this? We had an opportunity to be out at the Short Mountain area together, and Chad showed me around and does an incredible job of managing an ecologically important wet prairie, emergent and scrub shrub wetland, collectively known as Quamash Prairie. This restoration site, once a degraded agricultural floodplain of the Willamette River, is fortunate to be under Chad's care. Not only is Chad making immediate improvements to an important ecosystem, but he's giving young people an opportunity to get involved, discover a love for the outdoors, and engage them in work they can be proud of. Chad oversees seed collection and proliferation of desirable natives while hand removing undesirable non-natives. Efforts with local schools especially extend his work to the wider community. He hosts student groups at Quamash Prairie weekly, fostering community involvement and stewardship starting at a young age. And we have a video we're not going to show. It's a 16-minute video, but I really encourage you. There's a QR code on the sheet that we handed out, and we'll post this to the website so folks can watch that. I want to thank you, Chad, for all of your incredible work, for the recognition from the State Land Board, and we're so blessed to have Chad working here in Lane County and demonstrating to all of us in our workforce and our community what it means to have a passion to serve. Jeff, I want to ask you if you want to add some comments.
Sure, I'd love to. I could talk about Chad all day, but I won't. And so I wanted to highlight, so we have this prairie, and it's really kind of, also serves as our mitigation site for the wetlands that are disturbed by the landfill, major resource in the county. So there are required elements to that, right? It does not require that you bring hundreds of school children in. It's not required that you bring high school students in who then mentor grade schoolers to show them through experiential education activities, about the outdoors and connect that classroom learning to the outdoors. So, Chad really took something that when he was hired to do said, make sure that we're adhering to our regulations, and said we can do that in a much better way. He doesn't like to talk about it a lot. He does not like recognition. This is really uncomfortable for him, so I won't go on forever. But it is, having worked in alternative schools, seeing alternative high school students and charter school students go out there and connect that learning, and oftentimes stay in school because they get that type of experience where they get hands-on learning is so amazing to see. He gets some pizza and they start a campfire, and they're sitting around there and learning while being out there. It's pretty impactful. So I would recommend if you ever have a chance to see it, it is kind of one of our favorite little secrets in the county. And we couldn't do it without the years of experience that Chad has, and for him ensuring that, not only do we get to do those really great things, but that we're really doing the right thing for the community and for the climate by being out there. So just wanted to thank you, Chad, for everything you've done. This is very well deserved, and excited to be able to share some of his accomplishments with you all.
Thank you so much. It's great to be able to appreciate work like this, talk about work that's often unseen and maybe not even known that we're doing it. So I'll just open up to the board to see if anybody wants to make a comment or add anything. Commissioner Seneca.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Always great to see you. Chad, this is work that is near and dear to my heart. So I used to do wetland mitigation and rebuilds and rehabs, and it's really fulfilling to go back and look at these wetlands years later and to see what they've progressed into and what they look like. And you know, it's not always the most glorious work, but it truly is when you see what it's doing for our environment. So greatly appreciated, and what a cool award. Thanks.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Chad, I've never met you, but as I'm reading about this award and the video that I've kind of run through just a little bit too, is this is a great investment in the future. And I think that's really where you're going to stand out, and where I appreciate more what you're doing now is you're investing not only in kids for the future, but the environment of the future. And for us to have an education system like what you're trying to foster, about fostering creativity and responsibility and legacy, I think is a really important aspect that maybe our education system has forgotten about. And I appreciate you bringing it back to the table. Good job.
Commissioner Buck.
Thank you for working at Lane County and doing such wonderful things. I have never seen the Prairie, so sign me up for your next tour, because I would love to go and see what you've been doing there. And I know that my kiddo would love to see it too. I don't know how many student groups you get to come through and how that's all organized, and I would love to know more. Thank you.
Commissioner Farr.
You know, I admire your work tremendously. You know, just the fields of blue, you know, when the camas is blooming is just a remarkable thing. And of course, Quamash Prairie is not the only place that it blooms around here. And I'm really curious about the seeds that you gather, the native seeds. We don't need to talk about that today, but I'd love to come and visit you and just show me. And maybe I could bring some grandchildren with me to see, you know, what this turns into. And you know, the Quamash, that is camas, isn't it? Yeah, so that's you know, it's pretty cool the work you do. I mean, everybody should admire it. Everybody should look at it. Everybody should look at the photographs of it, and just really revel in the things that you are able to accomplish right underneath our very noses. What, 2 miles south of here, something like that? 3 miles maybe? Yeah, it's right here. So good job. Good job for generations. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll just add my words of appreciation, echoing what my colleagues said, and particularly, I know for me, something to focus on that's about a vibrant and bright and positive future is especially important right now. So thank you for that work. And also anyone who lets us talk about scrub shrub should be extra appreciated. That is a very fun thing to say. Thank you so much for your work, and congratulations on the award that you received and having the governor come and deliver that to you. That is a real honor. I'm sure for you individually, but also for us as a county to have your work recognized here with our organization. So thank you for that. I think probably Devin's ready with the photo op. And so while that is happening, we will move into the public comment portion of our meeting. This is when anyone who wishes to present up to 3 minutes of testimony on any topic before the board may do so. I have a few folks signed up here in Harris Hall, so I'll read the names out, and then I'll turn it over to Jessica to see if there's anyone wishing to give remote testimony this morning, and then I'll just check back in to see if anyone arrived after the sign-in sheet had been handed up that wishes to speak. So first up this morning is Jim New, and so I'll have Jim please come to the podium, state your name for the record. Jessica, can we get there we go, get the clock up. So when I call your name, you'll come to the podium, state your name for the record, and when you do, your 3 minutes will begin, and the clock is here up on the wall. You may begin anytime, Mr. New.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jim New. I live in Mr. Seneca's ward. I had a strong feeling back in August at the County Commission meeting that this day would come to tell you three gentlemen how self-serving your intent would be perceived by your constituents regarding Measure 2030-62. I distinctly remember Commissioner Farr pontificating about the public's voice at the ballot box is democracy in action. Commissioner, you are absolutely right. The public spoke and showed you just how self-absorbed and egotistical you acted in trying to scam the system. The three of you, Mr. Farr, Mr. Seneca, and Mr. Lovell, usurped the Charter Review Committee's work process and recommendations for personal district re-election gerrymandering purposes. You insisted county staff come up with the language and redraw the district boundaries to get the measure submitted to the county elections office under the deadline, which wasted staff time, subjected staff to undue stress, and cost the citizens of Lane County tens of thousands of dollars in unnecessary wages and fees. To come out after the measure handily failed and state, Mr. Lovell, that the measure language was awkward and lay blame on staff is pretentious. You three commissioners approved it. Shame on all of you. It is unfortunate that Commissioners Buck and Trieger have to share this dais with constituents that seek personal agendas rather than the business of the county. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Next up is Ann Lardner. Anna, please correct my pronunciation and apologies for if I mispronounced your name.
That's okay. My name is Anna Lardner. My pronouns are she, her. Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak today and for giving us this voice for public comment. I have been a Lane County resident since 2017. I was a former county employee, a parole officer in the domestic violence unit. I left to pursue a career in dancing, which was really my passion. But I'm here today because the values that we protected in Lane County are currently under potential siege from an incoming administration in Washington that is likely going to go after the very values and core beliefs that we hold so dear. Oregon has laws which codify a number of these rights. Specifically, three I'm going to talk about today are immigration, as well as reproductive health care and gender-affirming care. Our state has been a sanctuary state since 1987. It was actually the first in the nation to become a sanctuary state by law. Since then, we have passed a number of other measures which have added to ORS and bolstered our commitment to undocumented immigrants in the state. In addition to that, reproductive health care has been a pillar of our community for just about as long. As recently as 2023, the Oregon legislature passed House Bill 2002, which guaranteed reproductive rights for all Oregonians, as well as the right to gender-affirming care for all Oregonians, stating that any insurance provider who provided coverage in our state must cover all medically necessary gender-affirming care. These measures, among others, have made Oregon a haven for marginalized and vulnerable people, and that is central to both our state's values as well as the values of our county. Unfortunately, the incoming administration in Washington, which has recently gained a trifecta control of the legislative, executive, and judicial branch, is likely going to try and jeopardize that. They plan aggressive and intrusive immigration raids across the country, as well as definitely in our state. Incoming President Trump has publicly stated that he will work with Congress to pass a law that defines that there are only two genders in this country, and that they are both defined at birth. In addition to this, he has vowed to ban gender-affirming care for minors, and his federal administrative changes to the FDA and other agencies are likely going to affect abortion and reproductive health care access for all. States like California and Washington have already declared public commitment to protecting these rights. I hope that Governor Kotek and the legislature does the same too. Here in Lane County, though, the commissioners can take a stand by making such a similar statement that we will protect our vulnerable Oregonians, that we will make sure that we safeguard the rights of our community and our people against those from Washington who might come and try to take those rights, that we will not accept money from federal immigration authorities, that we will protect the reproductive health care, gender-affirming care, and other rights that we hold so dear. Thank you so much for your time, and I really hope to hear about that statement soon. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for your public comment. Next up is Deborah McGee, who will be followed by Ken Jones.
Good morning. My name is Deborah McGee, and I live in Heather Buck's district. I'm 72 years old, and 45 of those years I have lived in Lane County. I have voted every election, so for over 50 years. And when I retired as a public school educator, I paid more attention and got involved more closely with politics as I realized the reason to participate and organize for your values was to help elected politicians understand and make policies that represent the greatest good for the well-being of the majority of people. We are in a time when there is great mistrust in politicians and in our democracy to adequately represent and protect the rights of people. And you three commissioners who pushed a gerrymandering ballot measure onto the voters are the epitome of that distrust. You have undermined our trust. We came to you and gave you public comments at more than one meeting in person and an email. We told you that we didn't want this change to our governing charter. We told you we appreciated the work that had already been accomplished by the independent committee that had worked for 18 months to establish fair district lines. And you didn't listen to your staff. You had one voice in support of your measure, and then you listened to yourselves. You were deaf, dumb, and blind to our voices, so you did it, and you lost badly. The Weekly says your self-interested forced ballot measure against the will of the people, you lost by 75%. I'd say you got shellacked. I want to publicly thank the citizens of Lane County for defeating your bad idea. And I thank the two commissioners who did listen to the people. And I remind you that choices have consequences. And when your time to seek re-election comes, we will remind the voters that you wasted our tax dollars, you didn't listen to the people, and you should not be re-elected to hold office. In the meantime, you do have an opportunity to show Lane County residents that you can hear our voices, that you're willing to lead in the direction the citizens want you to go. If you do that, the citizens will support you, but you need to regain our trust. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Next up is Ken Jones, who will be followed by David Eigel.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Ken Jones, and I live in District 3 in the South Hills area. And I'm somewhat new to Eugene. I've been here only a year and a half, new to Oregon as well. And right away, I saw this behavior on 2362 as something that I was moving from Missouri, that I saw a lot of there. I didn't expect to see that kind of thing happening here. But I want to start by saying something that's more broad. We are going to be seen as the enemy within in this area, on the West Coast, in cities, particularly on the West Coast, and any counties that are associated with them. So we're not going to get much from the federal government on much of anything. So things like the environment, which people in this area are very concerned about, things like climate, that we're going to have far more disasters, not just fires, but lots of other disasters as well coming. We're not going to get much relief from the federal government. So I think as a county, you guys have to sit around and talk. How are we going to make up the difference? What are we going to do? What are our priorities? And so I want to comment on 2362 as part of that picture, because you have to work together. Good governance requires that you all work very respectfully with one another. Treat each other as you're all working for the county. You're not working for your little district. It's really important that at this time when we're going to be challenged, you really got a strong message that this is people, not politicians. So I think it's time that each of you maybe have some meetings about this. What is your plan for this county going forward in the face of what has happened at the federal level? Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Next is David Eigel, who will be followed by Carolyn Partridge.
Good morning. David Eigel. I thought I've given handouts of what the plaque that was put up at Dunn Hall when Dunn Hall was dedicated to be distributed to all. The final line is, with reference to Professor Dunn, his ability to invest ancient things with contemporary freshness, his kindly and gracious personality, his sincere personal interest in his students were for over 40 years a prominent and much appreciated part of the university. This was Arthur Fleming, the noted civil rights activist who asked that Dunn be honored. Commissioner Traeger has publicly stated here that she reads my research and writing, finds it troubling, but that she doesn't respond. I perceive her finding my writings troubling understandable. I find her lack of response very, very troubling. Commissioner Traeger should find my writings troubling because they document that she has publicly made a fool of herself. Tax revenues in public institutions have been used not to enlighten and educate the public, but to degrade and defame the white Protestants of Eugene, who comprise most of the population of Eugene in bygone generations. That is why Commissioner Traeger doesn't respond. She has been unable to challenge my work because it is documented history. She has nothing to offer but efforts to avoid the uncomfortable truth. My work began with exposing the fraudulent scholarship defaming Professor Dunn, extended into addressing the crackpot Racing to Change exhibit at the Lane County History Museum, and recently exposing the completely ridiculous narrative that was being used to defraud the public into donating funds to build a memorial commemorating the history of the Ferry Street Bridge community that never occurred. It's worth noting that anyone who wants to learn the authentic history of the post-World War II Ferry Street Bridge community need only read the relevant Register Guard newspaper articles from 1946 to 1951. This is not a hidden history. However, Commissioner Traeger, a transplanted Jewish Pennsylvanian, relied on the nonsense being promoted by a transplanted California black massage therapist to provide historical research into our local history regarding the local white Protestants. Hardly a sound approach. I encourage any of the commissioners in the response period to identify and provide documentation for anything in my work that they believe to be of significant error or why they feel that some action should not be taken to inform the public of the misinformation that has been distributed at taxpayer expense. Thank you.
Next up is Carolyn Partridge, and that is the last person I have signed up here in Harris Hall.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Carolyn Partridge, and I live in District 3. I'm here to speak about Measure 2362. It was an embarrassing debacle, and I'm glad it was soundly defeated. It was a thinly veiled attempt at mid-cycle gerrymandering right before an upcoming election for certain commissioners. It appeared on the ballot despite the opposition of the Independent Citizens Charter Review Committee and against the recommendation of the Elections Office. It was an arrogant decision by 3 commissioners. In the future, please use scarce county resources to do positive things for Lane County. No more cynical ploys. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. At this time, I'll turn it over to Jessica to see if there's anyone who wishes to present online comment to commissioners this morning.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to give public comment at the Board of County Commissioners meeting for November 12th, please raise your virtual hand. I see 2 hands raised. Joe Tyndall, I have unmuted you. Would you like to be on camera?
No, thank you.
You may begin your public testimony.
Okay, Joe Tyndall. I am here because 1, you want to spend public money on a woke monument to anti-white racism. 2, you ignore evidence contradicting the woke narrative. 3, I was labeled bigoted and white supremacist and threatened. 4, Lane is one of 19 Oregon counties sued for dirty voter rolls. Democrats are the woke party, but where does their funding come from? I'll discuss that next week. For now, let's talk elections. On October 24th, 2020, when questioned why he was not actively campaigning, Biden said, quote, President Obama's administration put together the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. Dementia patients often blurt the truth out. Biden's statement is still on YouTube. In 2020, vote counting was suspended, and in Wisconsin, with 94% tallied, Trump was ahead by 107,000 votes, enough to call that race. Pallets of ballots then magically arrived in all 5 swing states to cancel Trump's robust leads. Only some counting centers process these bogus ballots. Because their turnouts were impossibly high, with some exceeding registered voters, these points of corruption pop out in the data. Averaging the 2016 and 2024 popular vote, did 20 million extra people vote in 2020, or were mass mail-in ballots harvested, or more printed? Note that many places did not perform signature checks. Trump filed 3 court challenges. Other parties submitted 57. Most were dismissed for lack of standing, a doctrine overused by corrupt judges to deny plaintiffs access to courts. None of these 60 cases made it to discovery, where evidence of shenanigans could be crowbarred from counties hiding it. The 2020 ballots have now been destroyed, along with their envelopes, or lack thereof. Is that good? After 4 years of Biden damaging our nation, voters have handed Trump a victory too big to rig. His mandate includes, among other things, eliminating wokeism funding and reforming corrupt election systems. To make cheating easier, vote counting has been centralized and removed from public view. Ballot custody chains are compromised. In Portland, for example, 2 drop boxes were burned. Should this commission demand a review while the Lane County voter rolls are being cleaned to determine how many ineligible ballots were cast in recent elections? Or do you want to hide this? Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Our next individual with hand raised is Madeline Phillips. Madeline, I have unmuted you. Would you like to be on camera?
Yes, please.
Just one moment while I promote you.
Thank you.
All right. You may now turn your camera on. And you may begin your public testimony.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chair Traeger. My name is Madeline Phillips. I am the Public Facilities Planner with the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And I'm here speaking on a personal note as the former city planner for the city of Crestwell. You have on your agenda today, and apologies for my inability to be there in person. I'm juggling a couple of competing interests, one of which is on my lap right now. I'm here to speak to your item 7A, which discusses the public facilities work that is comprised of the MWMC system and the opportunity that other communities in Lane County beyond Eugene and Springfield may have to connect to that system at some point in the future. Rather than get into the minutia that's shared in the staff report, which I felt fairly comprehensively addressed goal 11, which is the goal within the statewide land use planning framework, which addresses the availability of utility systems to serve built environmental uses. I'd like to highlight some of the regional nature of our housing market and ask you to keep this in mind as you think through and have a discussion today about the MWMC system. Decisions that folks make, we know, don't necessarily always include all factors, but they certainly include availability, affordability, and amenities that are available to folks and the opportunity to find housing in a region. That said, our housing market is very regional in nature, and it's important for us to think about how those amenities and availability are made available to members of the public, folks that come and work in our businesses and live in housing within our state, and particularly in this region. Crestwell is a critical community in our arithmetic of how we provide choices to folks in the future. We know that we have a fairly large unmet housing need in Lane County, and it's absolutely critical that we think about how to enhance opportunities in different pockets, different communities within those incorporated places within Lane County. So I'll be listening to your item 7A this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to continue to engage in the process as you move that forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to give public comment? I do not see any other hands raised. I will turn the meeting to you, Chair.
Thank you, Jessica. At this time, I'll just check in to see if there's, pardon me, anybody else who arrived late in Harris Hall wishing to give up to 3 minutes of comment to the board this morning. Seeing none, I will close public comment. We do have a 9:30 time certain item, Commissioners, and we are at that time, but I wonder if our guests here to present on that would give us a few minutes to allow Commissioners time to respond to public comment. I'm seeing, great, thank you so much, appreciate that. And so with that, I will turn it over to the board for any Commissioners' response to public comment or other issues or remonstrance, being mindful of time and remembering that we do have time at the end of our meeting for board announcements if there's anything anybody wishes to bring up that we run out of time for this morning. To the board. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody who came in to speak this morning. I wanted to respond to a few things and then mention some events this week that are coming up. Anna, thank you for speaking. I couldn't agree more. It would be really great if we would want to consider some kind of statement that you suggested, but I don't like to make statements if they don't include action items. And so that might take a little bit of time to determine what action items we can do to protect our most vulnerable and those that are feeling a lot of feelings right now in our community. And we know that as a board, we have the opportunity to protect our most vulnerable, and we have every obligation to do so. Also, we continue to hear anti-Semitic remarks at our dais. And yes, everybody has the opportunity to speak for their 3 minutes, whatever they may want to say. That is their free speech rights, and I'm happy to grant that. But so do we. And we are models to the community. And even though we can support people's free speech rights, it's also very important that we stand up for those that are being attacked and make plain that we don't agree with those statements. And it would be apropos of us to maybe revisit some of those statements that we've made in the past, and as a board, make it clear to the public where we stand. And so maybe I might bring that up a little later as an assignment for us, if the board majority would agree. And for events, more joyous events that are happening this week that I would invite the public. Friday, there is a groundbreaking for housing up in Blue River, a cluster of 5 homes in conjunction with the McKinsey Long-Term Recovery Group and Dev Northwest. And that is at 2 o'clock on Friday in downtown Blue River. Can't miss it. And then on Saturday, the Mackenzie O'Brien Library has finally been rebuilt, and it is their grand opening, and that is also at 2 o'clock in Blue River, and I would welcome the community to celebrate with them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners? No.
Sure.
Commissioner Farr.
Objective truth is something that's true for everyone. You know, what we look for up here is objective truth. What is the objective truth, which looks at all elements of fact and doesn't just focus on a single facet, looks at all elements of fact. Anna, and I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. Can you say it out loud for me? Lardner, thank you. I want the transcript of what you said. You spoke without notes, so you probably don't have it written down anyplace, but the words you said were powerful. Everybody should hear it, and some of those words are going to come out of my mouth. You were brave to stand up here. You said the words that many of us are thinking, and words that are going to be challenged pretty severely, I do believe, for many of us and many of our families in the not-too-distant future. Thank you for being here this morning. You really have spoken to me personally. Thank you. Second, I wanted to say howdy to Mayor Strom. I always love to recognize elected officials when they're in the audience, and here you are today. I kind of expected you. Good to see you. We'll hear more from you later. Back to objective truth. It really is a fleeting thing when you kind of look through a single lens at things. You don't get to see the objective truth. I've heard elected officials say we're not here to deliver the objective truth. We're here to deliver our version of the truth. I believe in objective truth. I believe in versions of the truth that are definable, that are verifiable, and that really stand the test of time. The truth is the truth is the truth. SHED, everybody knows there's a community of SHED, should not be in the same House district as the University of Oregon. It was for a lot of years. So when we look at, for instance, how we as elected officials determine what is going to be the way we act and respond, we should look at objective truth and not just versions of the truth, not just a narrow version of what is the truth, and really look for more. I would love to spend time with some folks who spoke what was their version of the objective truth today and let them know what mine actually is. And so you can hear more directly from me, reasons that maybe I had. Ms. Smoker, I see I just won my election in North Eugene. Won it by double digits in May, won it unopposed last Tuesday. I'm pretty pleased with that. Commissioner Trieger also won in double digits in May and unopposed on Tuesday. We're here to deliver what I believe is the objective truth. Test us on it. If we're not telling the truth, call us on it. Bring us aside personally and call us on the absolute truth, not versions of the truth, not the unobjective truth.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks for everybody coming out. Obviously, you spoke your mind and your heart, and we appreciate that. Sometimes we don't like what you say, but that's too bad. That's our job, and it's your job to tell us what we need to hear. So I want to tell you I appreciate your comments. I also want to make known that I think the struggle going forward, as I stood on the issue of redistricting, I think even of the 4 measures, 3 of them failed, and I was kind of surprised, to be honest, that 2 of them, the tax limitation, and my brain is going blank for a second, and the other one too was a clarification of what the charter should be cleaned up, and those even failed. So I think the distrust of government goes deeper than just one measure. But I also contend with that Lane County still has 5 voices. They have 2 rural counties and 3 metropolitan counties. I still go by the math that Eugene has only afforded 2.3 votes, not 5 in the system of maps. I still am trying to bridge a gap with 700 South Eugene voters who have really nothing in common with the district I represent of downtown Springfield, but we're going to bridge that gap, and we're going to find some commonalities that we also hail to be important and prioritized for all of us. And I meet with them on a regular basis. And so as a commissioner, I'm going to represent the people that are in my district, regardless if I think the district is fairly drawn or not. But we will work together as a team. And I know my colleagues, even though we disagree, I think that I can speak for my colleagues to know that Lane County residents and constituents can be assured that we all are going to work for the good of the county. Some issues we may divide on and may not agree on, but that doesn't mean that we're not united in the things that are truly important. And that's protecting vulnerable, that's housing, that's public safety. Those are the things we all agree on. So rest assured, we are all on the same page, on a very large page. So I want to make sure that you know that, and we're working for you, and that's our job. Thank you again.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioner Seneca.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate everybody coming out, talking to us today. As someone that's not affiliated, I received a handful of phone calls from people that were on multiple people that were on the ballots, some that won, some that lost. And what the overwhelming conversation was about is these are the results and we're moving forward. I could see by some of the comment today, we're not all moving forward, but that's the way I would like to look at it. There was a measure on the ballot, voices were heard, measures oftentimes fail. I mean, more failed than passed. We go through all of them. So here we are, and we're moving forward. As Vice Chair spoke, clearly there is a distrust. Look at most of the measures failed. Some of them needed to pass. We would have loved to have seen some of them passed, and they didn't. So that is something we can all work on. And, you know, as I agreed with a lot of the stuff, Ken, one thing I would have to disagree with is you called my district little. It's huge. You know, I go from Chambers Overpass all the way to Ada. If you've only been here a year and a half, you might not know where Ada is, but it's a tiny little community on the coast. I have Commissioner Buck and I could probably go close to close. The most diverse district probably in the state. So when you make these statements aren't just coming from South Eugene. You have to put yourself in my shoes. That's the entire district. It's not a little district. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. In the interest of time, I'm going to keep my comments brief, and I'm just going to remind all of us that this board and past boards cumulative, you go to our website, in the search bar you put in equity-related board orders and resolutions. We have passed orders and resolutions acknowledging Indigenous Peoples Day and stating Lane County's commitment to intergovernmental tribal relations work. We've passed an order acknowledging Pride Month to further support our vision where Lane County is the best county in which all can live, work, and play. We've passed an order establishing a board response to incidents of hate, bias, or violence and providing the board chair with approval authority. A resolution in support of the Black Lives Matter movement and Lane County's commitment to putting in the work to achieve racial equity. A resolution in the matter of acknowledging the destruction of Lane County's first Black neighborhood and resolving to honor the history of the Ferry Street Village. A resolution denouncing white nationalism in Lane County. A resolution in the matter of endorsing recommendations related to the advancement of health equity in Lane County. A resolution reaffirming Lane County's values of integrity, respect, openness, accountability, public engagement, the pursuit of excellence, diversity, stewardship, and empathy. And a resolution declaring racism a threat to public health and a public health crisis. However, we are in a very different time than when any one of these board orders was crafted or passed. Not all of these were passed with a unanimous vote. And as Commissioner Buck very importantly pointed out, the action items that go with these resolutions is the critical piece that we have to start focusing on and committing ourselves and discussing. How do we manifest these resolutions, these values that we as an organization hold and that our community deserves? And so with Commissioner Buck and hopefully the rest of my colleagues and our administrator, I think we should all be focusing on thinking about what are the actions that we take. And just a reminder, every board item that comes before us, the staff prepares an agenda summary for us, and they talk about if there are health implications. And as I just read out, we have acknowledged that racism, for example, is a public health issue. So when we look through our equity lens, which is also a piece on all of our agenda items, I think we have to really work a little harder to understand the implications of what it means to do our work through an equity lens forever and always, but especially now. Thank you. With that, thank you so much for your patience. To the folks who had the 9:30 time certain, we really appreciate your forbearance. And so we have one very brief item, which is a consent calendar. These are all items considered routine. The materials are available online. And these items are passed in a single motion without discussion. So I will look for a motion, please.
Chair, I move to adopt and approve the consent calendar for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by the Vice Chair and seconded by Commissioner Buck to approve today's consent calendar. All those in favor, please signify with an aye. Aye. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. And now the 9:30 time certain, even though it is 9:45. Again, we appreciate your patience. I'll welcome our Economic Development Manager, Jason Davis, to the table and any of his guests that are here to present with him today. And I'll have you introduce your panel and the item, and thank you again for your patience with our timing.
So, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Jason Harris, Lane County's Community Economic Development Manager. I'm introducing Michelle Amberg, City of Cresswell City Manager, to join at the table this morning with her guest. And they were going to provide a PowerPoint presentation on the City of Cresswell's wastewater treatment plant facilities planning update. We also have staff from Public Works, Land Management Division, as well as County Council in attendance. They'll be available to respond to any questions from the board. There is also a planning presentation that goes into the details in regards to the planning process, in regards to amendments to the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission system, if that is necessary or if there's interest. So with that, I will pull up the presentation. So with that, City Manager Michelle Amberg, would you like to introduce your guest and have the presentation queued up when you all are ready?
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for fitting us into your schedule. I know that there was a big ask for that, and I know that you made it happen, so thank you very much. Today with us, we have our Mayor, Dave Stram, and we have our Public Works Director, Cliff Ballou. And of course, we had Maddie Phillips virtually speaking on our behalf of the planning issues. I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Stram to kick us off.
Good morning, Chair Traeger and Vice Chair Lovell, Commissioners Buck and Seneca and Farr. It's good to be here today. I'm Dave Stram. I have the privilege of serving as the Mayor of Cresswell. And I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity today to talk to you about wastewater. We seek a regional solution to our local problem because what happens in Cresswell doesn't stay in Cresswell. Eventually it drifts north along the Willamette River. Cresswellians love our small town, and we recognize how much we benefit from our proximity to Eugene, Springfield, and Lane County. Most of our citizens get up every morning and drive north to work. And while here, they do much of their shopping. Our city receives police services through a contract with the Lane County Sheriff's Department, and the deputies do a wonderful job in Cresswell, so I want to say thank you. We benefit and we also give back. The Lane County Sheriff, Cliff Harold, as you might know, is a Cresswell boy. Born and raised in Cresswell, families own a dairy farm for 100 years. Every 4th of July, we roll out the red carpet and welcome thousands of people who come to Cresswell, many from Eugene, Springfield, and the area. Every morning, we turn on the ovens at the Cresswell Bakery and bake goods that are served to hundreds of people who come from around the area. Perhaps you've been down and tasted the delightful goodies. One of our retirees served from 1989 to 2011 as the director of Lane County Youth Services. In fact, there's a meeting room at the Surbrook campus named after him, the Steve Carmichael Meeting Room. So I'd like to introduce to you this morning, Steve Carmichael. You may not know him or remember his name, but members of the board not too many years ago knew him very well. As he said, I was in this room many, many, many times. And there is a school in Eugene named after a Cresswellian. It's the only public school in Eugene I discovered named after a woman, a Cresswell woman, Bertha Holt. You very likely know the story of Harry and Bertha Holt and the contribution they made to children around the world to give them a home. Cresswell benefits from Eugene, Springfield, and Lane County, and we also like to think we give back. And our attitude in all this is that we're in it together. Whether it's jobs, or police services, 4th of July parades, or warm cinnamon rolls, providing leadership for the county, or homes for children around the world. Or today's subject, wastewater. We believe that we're all connected, and we need to continue to work that way. So I wanted to introduce to you also Dan Stouter and Todd, I forget your last name, from the Metropolitan Waste Management Commission. We've met with them. I've had personal contact with Lucy Vinnis and also with Sean Van Gordon, as we would seek their support as well, and they both have said we're on board to keep moving in this direction. So I believe with that, I will turn it back over to our staff. Thank you again very much for having us here today.
Thank you, Mayor. So we are here to talk about wastewater. And why? It is because we, as a small community, have a very high bar to jump. The DEQ recently looked at our permit and renewed it with significant changes to our plant. Very significant. It'll be very difficult for our community to be able to provide the funding necessary for these changes. As part of that, we were looking for economic ways to provide the service. And it was suggested that the county was already engaged in a project to bring a pipe down to the landfill. And you may not know, the landfill is right across the freeway from where we do our summer application of waste. And we thought, well, if we could connect to that pipeline, wouldn't that be a great thing for all of us? Today, I had expected our consultant to be here. She's made a beautiful...
I am here online.
Oh, she is here. Okay, good. She's here virtually. Phew. I was afraid I was going to have to do this myself. So I am going to turn it over to Catherine Giles. She is our consultant and expert on what we're seeking to do. So, Catherine.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. You could go ahead and advance to the next slide. So I was just going to start out with a quick overview of the existing wastewater treatment plant, just to give you some perspective on where Creswell is starting at and where they need to get with respect to water quality. So this is a schematic of the system. As you can see, it's a very basic treatment plant. It's a pond-based system with disinfection. That in the summertime, as Michelle just mentioned, there's an irrigation field that is used for land application. And the wintertime, effluent is discharged into a very small waterway that eventually empties into the Willamette River. Next slide. This is a schematic of the treatment plant. So most of the site is the pond system, which is shown on the left. And then on the right, you can see a zoom in there. Basically, the wastewater comes into an influent pump station, goes through the ponds, and then it comes out as a disinfectant and then is pumped out of the site. Next slide. So the drivers for this project come out of the new permit that was adopted in 2022. That permit requires an updated facility plan, primarily because the permit includes new limitations for both nutrients, nitrogen in particular, as well as for temperature that have to be met. And the existing treatment plant cannot meet those water quality requirements. So the facility plan has to outline the strategy for getting there. There's also more requirements for how much storage is needed to allow for that seasonal discharge. And as you can imagine, in rainy Oregon, there's quite a bit of storage needed. So expansion of that facility would also be required. Next slide. So the facilities plan looked at 4 alternatives. We looked at the regional alternative and then 3 different treatment strategies to evaluate which would be the best approach for Creswell. Next slide. This slide shows the comparison of the alternatives that was completed. The regional alternative shows a range of costs, and these are life cycle costs. So this includes both the capital infrastructure needed as well as the ongoing O&M costs, culminated over a 20-year period. The range reflected for the regional alternative reflects some of the uncertainty right now with the connection fees for MWMC, which is consistent with the county's study that was done for Goshen. The other 3 alternatives, as you can see, the cost of the regional alternative is significantly less than 2 of the treatment alternatives and then comparable to the 3rd alternative, pond treatment alternative B. We also did a qualitative evaluation of the options where a higher score is more favorable. And the regional alternative was significantly higher ranked from a qualitative perspective. And then we took both by considering the life cycle cost and the qualitative score. The regional alternative had the highest project value score, the lowest score, which is the most favorable compared to all of the other options. Next slide. So basically the reason the qualitative score was so high, again, the life cycle cost was similar, but the regional alternative really provides a lot more reliability, operational simplicity, and redundancy for the city of Creswell. And a big part of that is because the city has the ability to equalize, store flow in the ponds, and then discharge to the regional system in a controlled manner, which gives a lot of flexibility. It also reduces a lot of long-term operational challenges with respect to the existing treatment plant, and then also reduces long-term compliance risk because permits are just going to continue to get more and more and more stringent over time and continue just upgrades and upgrades to the plant to meet those requirements over the long term are just going to keep racking up costs for Creswell, whereas in a regional approach, there's a larger group of people working together to kind of keep up with those changing regulatory standards. And then, as I mentioned, the city can leverage the existing pond system to help minimize construction and operational risks. And with future growth, that can be accommodated as well because we have that ability to store peak flows. We can increase low flows during the drier weather periods without having a big impact on the collection system. Of course, as everyone is aware here, this requires coordination with Lane County, MWMC, the community of Goshen, and the cities of Eugene and Springfield. So quite a bit of coordination is needed, and that's really the big hurdle that we need to get over to make this move forward. And in accordance with conversations with DEQ, we've also identified that if through ongoing coordination and discussions, it's determined the regional alternative just cannot move forward, the city will move forward with treatment alternative 3B. Next slide. So quick overview of the regional alternative. As I said, the city would utilize the existing equalization ponds to be able to hold flows when it's really high flow coming into the wastewater treatment plant and be able to discharge to the regional tie-in at a rate during dry weather that's as low as 0.4 million gallons a day up to a sustained wet weather flow of 3 million gallons a day. Next slide. And this just shows a simple layout of the facilities with the pond serving as the equalization. Wastewater would come into the plant. Flows would be directed up to the 3 million gallons a day directly to the outfall pump station, and everything else could be equalized and brought back into the pump station as influent flows go down. Next slide. So from there, this slide shows the proposed conveyance lines. So the black dashed line here that leads from the wastewater treatment plant down on the lower part of the figure all the way up to where it showed the extension of the existing irrigation force main arrow. That's an existing pipeline that goes all the way to the existing land application area that is managed by the city. From there, there'd be a short extension of that up to manhole 28, which is the southernmost manhole identified for the Highway 99 alignment of the Goshen system. Through there up to the new pump station and then into the new dual force mains that are being proposed for the Goshen system. Next slide. So the facilities that would need to be constructed by Creswell, step back. There's 4 key elements that apply to this project. First are the facilities that have to be constructed by Creswell. That's the new, as I showed on that earlier slide, the new pump station, the pond improvements to allow for that equalization, the new effluent pumps, and then the connection from the irrigation area to the Goshen collection system. Then we also used the work that was already done by the county to look at what upsizing would be required within the Goshen project to accommodate the flow for the Creswell. And then also, again, relied on the all the great information the county put together regarding the potential development charges for MWMC and City of Springfield. And then finally, there's a potential cost related to the Springfield collection system that still needs to be worked out with that community. Next slide. So this just shows the Goshen system improvement costs that were identified. So the gravity sewer along Highway 99 is currently proposed to be an 8-inch pipeline and receiving a flow of about 500,000 gallons a day. To accommodate the city of Cresswell, that would have to be expanded to 18 inches and to accommodate a flow of 3.5 million gallons a day. And showing Cresswell's share of that cost. The force mains, the dual force mains would have to be extended from 10 inches to 12 inches. And then the Goshen pump station from, again, about 2.5 MGD to 5.5 MGD. So this is just showing the Cresswell share of the cost, and there would be no impact for the Goshen ratepayers in terms of accommodating this. Cresswell would cover all of the costs needed to upsize those facilities. Next slide. With the system development charges, again, there's a range there because there's two different methods in which that could be applied. And so we follow that same approach that was outlined by the county for the Goshen system. It's estimated between that and the Springfield charges about $13 to $17 million. And ultimately, the city and Linn County are going to need to work with both MWMC and Springfield to better define what these costs are. Next slide. So here's a summary of the total estimated sort of capital costs or upfront costs that would be required. About $39 to $43 million, about $40 to $43 million. Next slide. And this indicates the present worth cost, the estimated present worth cost of the project. So this would be the ongoing O&M costs. So we, again, applied MWMC rates based on what the number of equivalent single-family units that would be discharging to the system. We assumed some annual charges related to the operation and maintenance of the Goshen system itself. And then you can see some negative numbers here on our present worth costs. Those would be the savings the city would realize from no longer operating a wastewater treatment plant. So altogether, we're looking about $20 million in present worth O&M. Next slide. So again, this just shows how we got to that $59 to $63 million life cycle cost for that alternative. Next slide. So for next steps, a big part of that is what we're here today is to confirm county support for Cresswell inclusion in the Goshen project. From there, moving forward collectively, hopefully to secure partnerships with MWMC, the cities of Springfield and Eugene. The land use approval process is a really important step that needs to happen first through the Metro Plan Amendment. And then also confirmation of full project financing, which obviously has to come both if this project were to move forward collectively, coordinating that with the county and with Goshen on how all of that money from Cresswell can come together to move everything forward as one unified project. And then also working together with the county to confirm what the project cost would be for Cresswell for within the new Goshen system, confirming cost within the Springfield system, and then of course the Springfield and MWMC SDCs. So today's request to the board is that the board initiate a Metro Plan amendment concurrently with the current amendment underway for Goshen to allow the city of Cresswell into the MWMC system. And with that, I will hand it back over to the city folks.
Thank you, Catherine. And so that's our story. We have a population of about 5,800 people that need to bear those costs. Additionally, our entire system is not connected to this source of effluent. We actually have two systems in Cresswell. One is a private system on the east side. This one is the public system on the west side of the freeway. and the west side is a considerably lower socioeconomic profile than on the east side. So you can see we have even fewer people to pay the costs and people who may be less likely to have the extra money to do so. So we're under a lot of pressure to keep this as simple as possible, as affordable as possible. Unfortunately, we're not going to be eligible for grants because of the overall demographic of Cresswell. Our median income is too high to meet any of the federal limits. So we are looking to become a partner in the system. We think that this is the best option. In addition to the economic situation and the moratorium that we have right now, this is just a great solution for the long term. Cresswell will continue to grow. Right now, we put our effluent into a small unnamed tributary in the wintertime, to a small unnamed tributary of Camas Swale. This is never going to get bigger. It's never going to become more generous. We're just always going to continue to violate that as we grow. There is no future in using that output. And then, you know, of course, we all have to look at the environmental. And the environmental benefits of coming into this regional system are tremendous. Instead of us putting our effluent out into a small creek that goes into an important tributary, we could put it into a state-of-the-art system that makes sure that long-term we are enhancing the environment instead of degrading it. I think that is the end of our presentation. The crux of why we're asking you to partner with us is not only attaching to the pipe, but also the Metro Plan update. And I think that's what the remainder of this is going to be discussing.
So thank you, City Manager, Mayor. That concludes City of Cresswell's presentation, and they're really, maybe I'll ask them to stay and see if the commission has any questions of Cresswell. And then, as I mentioned, we have county staff available to also answer questions, as well as a technical PowerPoint presentation if the board was interested in kind of more of the detail of the amendment process. We do not need to present that if at this time. This is really an informational update in response to a board assignment. Based upon the board's direction today, staff would intend to return to the board with formal order and actions to move this initiative forward if there was such direction. So with that.
Great, thank you. And I see the mayor wants to add one more comment before I see if the board would like to ask any questions of our panel.
I'm wondering if we could have Matt Stouter from the MWMC maybe make a statement. We made a presentation with them, a good month back.
Good morning, Board. Matt Stouter with the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission. I also work with the City of Springfield. I am the MWMC Executive Officer and serve as the City of Springfield's Environmental Services Director. As Mayor Stram said, our board met back in September to talk about these issues. We also met, I met with City of Cresswell and DEQ folks and other staff in August and have a pretty keen understanding of the situation they're faced with. On behalf of our board, they expressed a positive, they expressed the need and the desire to want to work with Cresswell. MWMC does not make any decisions in this. They can support a recommendation that will go forward to the cities and the county, but do not make a decision. However, that said, each commissioner expressed support for moving forward with the land use approval. Sorry, I just got back from a 10-day vacation and found out about this meeting a few days ago. So is there anything else that you wanted from me at this point?
I think that was the gist of it. Thank you very much for coming today, Matt.
Thank you. To the board, Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. Clearly, I am supportive and have been attending the meetings and getting up to speed about the issue. I think I asked this before, but it would be great to have a reminder for the board. What kind of timeline are you on, given that we need to do the Metro Plan amendments, then we need to find money to even build the pipe. So there's some long time frame and horizon for you. What are your immediate timeline requirements that we can help you with?
One of the shortcomings of this system is the timeline. We don't believe that working with the county, we can meet the timeline that the DEQ has set. We actually have to make a decision on which route we're going to go in order to put our draft plan update to them on December 1st. So we were hoping for some indication that there was support by your body. But we will have to be working with DEQ to amend the timeframes as we go. So part of this is also a partnership with DEQ with understanding that in the end, they're going to end up with a better solution. It just may take a bit longer than what they anticipated.
So you need to have some kind of path that people have agreed on, but that path timeline is open-ended, or?
I can comment on that. This is Catherine from West Yost. So we've talked with DEQ about the timeline issues. They are very supportive of this regional approach. What we are proposing to put forward would be to spend effectively the next 2 years working with the county to better define that long-term pipe timeline. Crestwell will have a permit renewal in 2027. Which will be an opportunity to open the permit and reset the timeline. So we believe we can get some flexibility to move things forward in the next couple years, continue these negotiations, get to a point where we have a clear picture of the long-term timeline, and then come in 2027 to ask for the sort of final, here's the compliance timeline, if that makes sense.
Yes. Thank you very much. And it sounds like you're on a moratorium until this eventually comes into existence, which could be several years out. Is that right?
Well, we're hoping we can negotiate something. We're making good faith effort. A lot of the requirements that we have to meet right now have to do with our collection system. So we're working on that, and we're getting additional allowances for connections as we complete those things. But obviously, once we get into the section that requires the upgrade to the plant, that is going to be a much heavier lift, and we're going to have to work with them. And we hope that our good faith efforts will be taken into account and that they will change their opinion about what our effluent levels should be so that we can grow at that point. But we can grow small bits right now. I think we have somewhere between 35 and 40 connections right now that we can fulfill.
And your financial options sounds like are considerably low. So the $60 million, that's the max estimated at the moment. Of course, that will move over time, likely up. Has to be borne by your 5,000 plus citizens, is that right?
Well, even a smaller amount.
Oh, because it's right,
yeah.
It's one side.
So we will probably be looking at loans. Low interest loans. We'll be working with the state to try and get the most reasonable money we can get, trying to keep the price of it down. We may, even if the state cannot provide sufficient loans, we may have to look at a bond. So we're pretty open right now, but yeah, it is going to be a considerable lift. I have great concern that it is going to push out some of our lowest income people because they will not be able to pay their utility bill. So we have a lot of issues to consider to try and prevent that from happening, but we'll be doing our best.
Great, thank you. And just for the board, part of our issues with trying to increase housing production is where do we put all these homes and what is actually required? And when you drill down on that, it means that our small communities, our small rural communities need our assistance for infrastructure needs in order to accommodate that growth. They're so small, they just don't have the financial resources necessary in order to even maintain households of a certain income or less, let alone expand and meet those housing needs and production goals of that our governor has set. So I'm hoping that my fellow colleagues will be happy to support this. Thank you, Chair.
If I might add on, we have been contacted by other small cities who are in the same situation. You know, we're kind of the canary in the coal mine. These costs are getting far outstretching what our budgets and our populations can support. There needs to be other alternatives, or there needs to be more free money, one of the two. I don't see free money coming along, so we really appreciate your consideration of our request today.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you. We have to do this. That's all, thank you. No, let's not talk about the dollars and cents at this point in time. We know it's huge, and we know there's a lot of work that's going to happen into that, but why do we have to do this? You stated it succinctly, Manager Amberg, when you said, and I quote, "We need to put our resources into a state-of-the-art system to make sure that in the long term, we are enhancing the environment and not degrading it." That's no small element. We also say, you also said Camas Swale is never going to get bigger. It's never going to get more generous. This is the moment in time. You know, we have to look at it now. The decisions that we make today, and I'm going to look at Mr. Jones over here, who talked to us about acting beyond our districts earlier. We work for Lane County, and in Lane County, we have to make the best use of the resources that we have, the best decisions today, so that future generations aren't paying the price of us failing to make decisions or us not making the hard financial decisions at this point in time. It's tough. This is not an easy process that we're going to go through, but I am in on, in fact, I'm going to right now say I confirm my support for the Cresswell inclusion in the Goshen project. Matt Stouter and Todd Miller, you've heard me say that at the MWMC meetings. I'm on board finding the way until there's an absolute dead end that stops it, and I don't think there's a dead end there. I think we march down the road and make it happen. Because it's the right thing to do at this point in time. The only thing you're asking us to do today is to initiate a Metro Plan amendment. And I'm prepared to make that motion or make that request for head nods when the time comes, if nobody else is going to do that. Commissioner Buck lives in that district. No, wait, all 5 of us live in that district. It's Lane County, right? And we're making decisions that affect people who live in the metropolitan area, that live in West Lane and East Lane and South Lane, people who in the entire county. How many people, Mr. Carmichael, when you worked for the county, did you live in Cresswell? In fact, and you worked here for Lane County. And by the way, I spent a lot of time in the room named after you. But that being said, this is regional. This is not just for Cresswell. And bearing the cost of the inclusion in the Metropolitan Wastewater Management System is something that we all have a part in. In my heart, I truly, truly believe that we have to make the best decisions with our limited resources and provide the best results for future generations, not just for today, but for posterity. We're going to make decisions today that people 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 longer years from now will either rue our decisions or cheer our decisions. Let's do one that makes them cheer, you know, and let's bite the bullet today so that they aren't biting the machine gun down the road. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Mayor Strom, the longest tenured mayor in Lane County, thank you for being here.
Commissioner Seneca.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Ms. Amber, you hit on exactly what I was going to say. I've spoken with the policy team a lot about this. There are other people watching. There are other communities that are against these same struggles, and they're watching this right now. And, you know, this is a perfect example of us all working together. With the restrictions and requirements that have been put on, these small communities are just struggling, and we're going to see more of this. So this is a great time for them to show us, a great time for us to show them that we are here to work together. This, I fully support this. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Amber, did you say that we can only grow our connections by 25 to 40 connections? Does that mean that we can only add about 25 to 40 houses to the community of Cresswell?
Houses, industrial, commercial, the equivalent of 45 single-family dwelling units, yes.
So as far as the glass being half full, you're right up to the rim, it sounds like.
Yes. Right now, we're not able to really engage in any low-cost housing because of that. Most of that is multifamily residential, which would far exceed the number of connections we're being allowed right now. So everything that's being built is not really meeting the state's objective for affordable housing.
One of the painful things our council has had to do for the last year plus is every 6 months approve a moratorium on building in Cresswell. So we are currently under a moratorium and have been, and that's been a painful part of my job as mayor.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. Well, and that just takes off a whole grid of area in Lane County, which we don't have a whole lot of property left anyway. If 83% of our property is forest lands that are either federally or privately owned, so we don't have a lot of taxation property to really deal with. The other thing that I heard you say is that obviously this pipeline is going to go by Glenwood. This also is going to help the Glenwood redevelopment, which I have a very fond heart for. So, I mean, as far as the county sharing the infrastructure costs of this, I think as Commissioner Farwell pointed out, this is an important issue that needs to be borne by more than just the community of Cresswell, but for the larger portion of the county at large, so that we can continue to make our county not only investable, but also habitable if we can build houses there. So I'm in full support of this as well. And you know, I'd like to see whatever we can do today to get this started, to boot this thing down the road and get it going. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Great. Well, I think you're hearing what you had hoped to hear. Pardon me. And that last comment was especially of interest to me, that not only do you have such a limited number of new connections available, but that housing has to compete with business and industry for those connections. And it's woefully inadequate too. I think I saw in the packet 850 housing units is sort of Cresswell's share of meeting the governor's goals for our housing needs inventory. So clearly we want to help solve a problem, and you've laid out a very clear problem. So I think you're hearing the general direction from the board without exception. So if there's something else that we can do or that we need to know, or Mr. Davis, is there something from the staff side of Lane County that would help this conversation? Otherwise, I think we've gotten where we were hoping to get today.
Yes, Chair. Thank you, commissioners, for the feedback and input. I believe you've all indicated support for the county's assistance to support Cresswell. And as I referenced, we did not make a motion. This was really an update in response to a board assignment, but we will be back in short order with the order and the actions to implement really the planning steps. And then, interesting enough, one of those orders of action you will see is authorization to seek federal funding to help support some of the design costs. There is legislation under the WRDA, Water Resources Development Act, that could be tapped, and we plan to apply for that to help cover some of these initial design costs. So we'll be back in short order, and we really appreciate your time and interest in this item. Thank you.
Great. And just for absolute clarity, and I'm looking to the administrator as much as anyone else in the room, the specific ask, you say our support, but that takes the form of initiating the Metro Plan amendment, right? Yeah, just I want to be really explicit. It's not just like, we think what you're doing is great, but that is the way, the path to do that.
Yes, Chair, that would be one of the actions of the order.
Right, and so we don't really need an assignment later. This will suffice. Great. Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and thank you for participating online to Ms. Gales as well.
I'd just like to commend the county staff. They've been working with us to help us understand the area that we're working in, and they've done a great job and given us many hours of one-on-one attention in the last month. So thank you to them.
Great, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Commissioners, for having us in today.
Thank you, Mayor. Safe drive. Headed south. All right. So we are now at item 7B, County Administration Announcements, beginning with an elections update.
Thank you, Chair. This is the only announcement that I have today, unless you have questions. I want to provide you an update on E+7. So a recap: by the end of last week, a total of 212,527 ballots have been returned. That is approximately 76% turnout of registered voters in Lane County. Approximately 85,000 ballots were received on Monday and Tuesday alone of last week, making up around 40% of the total ballots. So 40% of the total ballots received on Election Day and the day before. We get a lot of questions. I actually had a friend of mine that I spent some time with this weekend who is an active business person involved in local and state issues, and asked me the question, why does it take 20, sometimes 20 plus days for us to count the vote? here in Oregon and in Lane County. And so this is a common question that we receive from folks. And important to note that our, we have 21 ballot drop box sites. They were successfully, all the pickups at the 21 drop box sites were successfully conducted without issue or incident. I can tell you personally, I was there holding the door for the drivers that were bringing ballots back. All the ballots are secured. They're received by no less than 2 individuals that are with different party affiliation that drive together to the 21 drop box sites, collect the ballots, secure them in a box, bring them then directly back to elections and right into the elections office via secured entrance. So there were no issues or incidents in those ballot ballot pickup process. We're grateful for the support of the elections team has received and would like to give special thanks to the Board of Commissioners, to the Sheriff's Office, Eugene Police Department, and other local law enforcement, the dozens of extra help staff and Lane County employees that helped ensure that the election was safe, fair, accessible, secure, transparent, equitable, and reliable. So to the point of why does it take 20, sometimes 20 plus days, here in Lane County and in Oregon, state law allows for ballots that are delivered to the mail and postmarked on the day of election, November 5th, that the elections office, clerk's office has to wait 7 days for any mail to arrive. So that 7 days ends today. And if it is postmarked, if ballots are postmarked and all the other signatures and everything are in line, postmarked by November 5th, then they can be counted. It's also important to note that there are 3,125 challenge ballots. Of these, 347 ballots had a missing signature, and 2,778 ballots had signature discrepancies. So the signature on the envelope didn't match the original signature. To resolve, or what we call cure, that any challenge, a ballot challenge, a signature discrepancy, or a ballot that simply wasn't signed, the voter must provide sufficient evidence that they returned their ballot and or signed the envelope, or that they actually are I think I shared with commissioners when I was in Cottage Grove, I got a question, we got a call in from an individual who said, I have some nerve damage in my hand, and my signature is actually different now than it was when I originally submitted it. And so we have a process that typically requires an individual to come in person, or they can have an affidavit that can be signed in those incidences. So voters will receive a letter with instructions to cure the challenge, and the deadline for that cure is November 26th. Again, important to note that all the results are unofficial until the election is certified on or before December 2nd. So these are various reasons why we allow the amount of time. One, state law requires us to wait 7 days from the date of the election, which is today, to receive any ballots in the mail that were postmarked November 5th. We also have to allow those challenge ballots and signature discrepancies to individuals the time necessary, which is November 26th, to cure those. Election results will be posted 4 more times in the coming weeks by 5 p.m. on the following dates: today, November 12th, Friday, November 15th, Wednesday, November 27th, and Monday, December 2nd. Again, election results are unofficial until the election is certified on or before December 2nd. So I'm beating this horse a bit to death, but it's really important because we get this question all the time, again, from folks who are, oftentimes we would consider knowledgeable about elections process, but there's this question of why does it take so long? The vast majority of the votes are counted, but we have this process where, because we have a mail-in ballot process and the time necessary for individuals to correct any challenge ballots. So please visit the elections website for results, the ballot return dashboard, stats for challenge ballots, and other useful information at lanecountyor.gov/elections. You can go on the Secretary of State's website to specifically check to see, was my ballot received and verified, or there, other challenge issues, there you can check online for that information. So we'll provide another update on December 3rd, which is our next board meeting. And happy to answer any questions if you have any, Commissioner.
Thank you. And just to clarify, oh, no, never mind. Scratch that. Clarifying nothing. Any questions or comments from the board for the administrator? Commissioner Seneca.
Just a comment. I heard you were a great door holder, and everybody appreciated having you there. You looked good.
I was a greeter, yes, yeah. And I did have a task. It felt really good to have we're getting stuff done here, so it was all hands on deck.
You looked good with the Lane County hat on.
Thank you.
Untapped gift we didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have any other announcements from the administrator this morning? Okay, thank you. We are at item 8. We have 2 items before us, A and B. These are both from Public Works. So I think Jeff Orlandini is back with us again to introduce Order 24-11-12-04 in the matter of accepting a grant from the U.S. Department of Energy for expansion of consumer battery recycling services. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I had a couple staff that helped out with the collection of ballots. It was really a neat thing to see them get involved and do that. So, yeah, I'm really excited to be here for what I hope is a very exciting topic for everyone and great news. As stated in the materials in front of you, batteries in the landfill, but not only in the landfill, but at transfer stations and on route trucks, we found have become a major concern, not only in Lane County, but across the state and everywhere that collects waste, so the world, I guess. It's so much of an issue that we've actually, independent of this, also through the great work of Angie Marzano, really worked on helping craft some legislation that could help us collect batteries in a manner that's much more safe, keeps them out of landfills, keeps them out of those route trucks. But that's a little more long term. And so in terms of what we could do immediately to stop, the multiple landfill fires we have every year that we are certain are due to batteries, as well as some of those other fires I described, we said, what can we do more immediately? And so when you have great staff, you delegate to great staff. And so we assigned Maya to, look at, what could we do now to kind of to help this problem, because it's not getting better on its own. And so really that was about funding opportunities, but also, working with our local partners. And so as a result, she researched these opportunities and she applied for and was awarded the grant we hope that you approve acceptance of today. And so I want to hand it over to Maya to talk a little bit about what's in front of you, and then take any questions you may have.
Thanks, you.
Jeff. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning, Chair Trieger, commissioners. As Jeff said, we're here today to request that the board accept the United States Department of Energy grant that was awarded to LCWM, Lane County Waste Management, for $1,019,547 to expand the recycling of consumer batteries. And Lane County applied for this grant with letters of support from Apex Recycling and Disposal, as well as Royal Refuse, and also the local retail chain Bi-Mart Corporation, to increase access to battery recycling services and to keep batteries out of the waste stream. A portion of these funds will be designated to expanding battery collection, sorting, and storage capacity of our existing household hazardous waste facility at Glenwood Transfer Station. And funding will also be granted to local haulers to pilot curbside collection for battery recycling. Grant funds will also, and very importantly, be used to promote battery identification and safe handling and best practices to all Lane County residents. So this is because the modern generation of batteries is very different from what people grew up with, and the quick evolution of that technology has not been the same in public knowledge, and therefore we also need to supplement all the work that we're doing to expand our infrastructure with the same effort in public education, so that the public can help us to deal with this problem by keeping those batteries out of our waste management and recycling system. So, for example, as Jeff mentioned, we have a lot of fires related to batteries, and we're not even allowed to call them fires. They're thermal incidents. So smoking batteries in our landfill. In 2022, we had 57, which is more than twice what we've had since 2017 and 18. So we're seeing a really rapid increase in the number of lithium-ion batteries that we see in the system, which has mostly traditionally been alkaline. And lithium-ion batteries are unique in that they combust on contact with air and burn very hot and fast, and can threaten facilities, trucks, as well as human life. So, we've been very lucky that we haven't had catastrophic losses in this area, but there has been others who have, like Free Geek in Portland. St. Vincent de Paul recently had a big fire. We don't know what the cause is, but could very well be battery related as well. And so we're excited to be able to use these funds to expand services, but even more importantly, to protect public safety and the safety of all of our Lane County employees. So we also have a Justice 40 goal associated with this grant, which that funding will support increasing access in disadvantaged communities. So 40% of these batteries are proposed to be collected from what is considered EPA disadvantaged communities. So we recommend that you please accept this grant and allow us to go forth with this work. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Farr.
Thank you. I'm fully in favor, of course. Pretty remarkable work bringing us this far. But something that you said, Jeff, batteries have changed. Oh my gosh, the things that are battery operated now. About 40 years ago, I made a decision that almost got me fired as merchandise manager at Jerry's, was to bring in a large quantity of 9.6 volt nickel cadmium drills. Nobody had seen them, and Jerry said, cordless drills, what are you talking about? Go to a job site today. Everything is cordless. Everything operates on not just NiCad batteries, but on far more potent batteries today and it's continually evolving. So absolutely, I'd love to be able to pop to Bi-Mart and drop my stuff off there. When I took batteries out of my grandson's flashlight over the weekend, what do I do with these? Well, let's take them to Bi-Mart. Right on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Buck.
Just a quick question. Thank you to Bi-Mart, by the way, for being a partner. Are there other businesses that are interested in becoming a partner in this?
Currently, our partnership is with Bi-Mart, but we did write in that we are open to exploring other commercial and retail partnerships, so it's a possibility.
I feel like there are some that want to wait to see how it goes with Bi-Mart to make sure that, there is an incident, and then would hop on. We definitely contacted a few others that seemed cautiously interested. So we're hoping this can be a success story and spread it.
That makes me follow up with a question. The containers that they're put in, are they specially designed containers so that nothing will happen at their stores?
Well, that's the hope, but they are specially designed. They do have a liner that should melt if a fire should happen in that box. There's a kind of fiberglass liner that will smother any fire that should happen in those boxes. But we're also hoping that partners will register with our local fire marshal and department to ensure that all those sites are acknowledged or in the awareness of those fire districts.
Thank you. Well, before asking for a motion, I will just say I'm looking at the memo and see that this is a match grant, and it's just a great example of how at Lane County we are really good at leveraging, right? And so not only is there a match to get the federal dollars of about a 50%, but that about half of our half is being met through staff time and indirect, so in kind. So the actual cash outlay on behalf of taxpayers is leveraging quite a bit of resource from the federal government to protect our workers, our facilities, our environment, and just, again, continue to better serve folks. So it's a good deal. Thank you for that. Is there a motion?
Chair, I move to approve and accept the grant from the United States Department of Energy for $1,019,547 for improving consumer battery recycling services across Lane County, and delegate the authority to the county administrator to execute all resultant contracts and agreements related to this grant.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved by the Vice Chair and seconded by Commissioner Buck to approve the order. Is any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Approval of Order 24-11-12-04 in the matter of accepting a grant from the U.S. Department of Energy for expansion of consumer battery recycling services as presented. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here this morning. And we have one more brief Public Works item. This is Order 24-11-12-05 to set a public hearing for the vacation of a portion of a public road. And is Jay with us online, or is someone else presenting this item? I have Jay Blamet's name on the agenda, but I don't see him or Trevor in the room, so.
Dan,
Director Hurley, are you going to? Okay. Well, then.
We don't have later in the day.
Well, we do have another Public Works public session after the exec.
Oh.
Yep, so we could tack it on there. Great. Then with that, without objection, we'll move item 8B to this afternoon or TBD, depending what Director Hurley discovers who's available. And so with that, at the sound of my gavel, we will be recessed. We will reconvene in an executive session in the conference room. And I just realized I don't know that I have a read-in. Hang on, please. I don't have a read-in. I think I can read what's on our agenda. I'm looking to our county council representative that the board is now going to meet in executive session per ORS 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection, and ORS 192.6602H to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Thank you. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are precluded from attending. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decisions will be made in executive session. The board reserves the right to enter back into public session at the end of executive session. This executive session will be held as a hybrid meeting via remote phone or in-person attendance. Members of the news media wishing to attend the phone session may send an email request to jessica.gebbgeb@lanecountyor.gov for information on how to listen in to the executive session. And it is 10:43. Without objection, shall we just convene at 11 promptly? Does that work for folks? Take a few minutes in between things? We have the time? Great. Then at the sound of my gavel will be recessed and reconvene sharp at 11 a.m. in the conference room. We are recessed. regular meeting of the Board of Lane County Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, November 12, 2024. And we are on item 10A, which is a Public Works item, discussion of continued pre-implementation compliance measures for integration of the Endangered Species Act in Oregon. And I'll turn it over to our senior planner, Rachel Serslev, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair Trieger, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Good morning. So staff is back before you this morning to discuss the pre-implementation compliance measures outlined by FEMA for compliance with the Endangered Species Act. We were last before you on November 5th, and we had a work session that detailed the specifics of the model ordinance that FEMA has published, and also the other pathway, which is the permit-by-permit approach, in hopes that that work session gave you a bit more detail to make a decision on what pathway you would like to see us pursue. And so staff is back before you this morning to get direction on which pathway to inform FEMA that we are taking. And staff is recommending a hybrid approach for implementation. We're recommending that the model ordinance and the permit-by-permit pathway approach be codified into Lane Code in order to pursue compliance with the ESA. And so we're looking for a direction on that in order to inform FEMA of our decision by December 1st of 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Again, so staff is just seeking direction, and just to clarify, if we do the dual approach, it would be up to the person applying which path they wanted to take for their particular application with staff's guidance.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. All right. Seeing no questions, or Commissioner Martin.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to commend staff on taking the information that the board kind of vaguely gave you in some cases and bringing actionable format before us today. You know, the what you're calling a hybrid approach seems to be the best we can do at this point in time, as far as I'm concerned, and leaving it with the permit requester to make a decision as to whether or not they want. I'm not going to call it model ordinance, even though that's what they call it. An ordinance is a model. A model is something that you should revere. This is an ordinance as a model, and I think you've given us a good. I'm in full support of the recommendation. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I'm seeing head nods, direction to go forth and make it so, and also appreciate that as FEMA gets feedback from local governments working to comply and our partner counties around the region, it will just inform the process, and hopefully by the time we get to the end of this process, we'll have something even more workable, but this at least allows staff to move forward, to respond to FEMA's timeline, and to continue to issue permits. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Then our next item is a carry forward from our earlier morning session. This is also Public Works, item 8B, and this is an order before us, Order 24-11-12-05, in the matter of setting a public hearing for the vacation of a public road, and I'll welcome our Public Works Director, Dan Hurley.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, this item is to request you to approve an order to set a public hearing on the date of January 14th at 1:30 p.m. to consider the vacation of a portion of Fisk Street. Fisk Street is a public road that is located in the unincorporated community of Glenada, which is south of the city of Florence. We received a valid petition signed by 100% of the abutting landowners to vacate this portion of the road. We have noticed several potentially impacted agencies and the nearby neighbors around this potential vacation. We have received one comment in opposition from a nearby neighbor who feels that this would restrict his access to his property. So there, by state statute, we're required to have a hearing, so requesting it for that date.
Great, thank you. And I assume this person will be notified once we approve the public hearing that that's their opportunity to get on the record. Perfect. Any questions or an order, or excuse me, a motion on the orders?
I have a motion, Chair. I move to approve Order 24-11-1205 and set a public hearing date of January 14th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. time certain to consider the vacation of a portion of Fisk Street, a public road, in the plat of Fisk addition to the town of Glenada.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by the Vice Chair and seconded by Commissioner Seniga. Is there any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Passage of Order 24-11-12-05 in the matter of setting a public hearing for the vacation of a portion of Fisk Road for January 14, 2025 at 1:30 time certain as presented. And that brings us to item 11, Commissioner's Business. Are there any announcements this morning? Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a really important announcement. Springfield Police Department awarded, along with the Governor, Officer Kristen Cardwell of the Police Department was awarded the Oregon's Medal of Honor for exemplary bravery in the face of imminent danger and service to our community. Never in the history of Springfield Police Department has this Medal of Honor been awarded, and it's only the third time in Oregon's history. So it was a pretty big deal. And so I just wanted to congratulate Officer Kristen Cardwell and the Springfield Police Department for their exemplary and heroic service to our community.
Any other announcements from the board? Commissioner Shenandoah.
Yeah, I'll just say we went to the, and I missed it during remonstrance, but it was the Albany Veterans Day Parade, and I was just talking to Steve Adams about that. That was 2.5 hours this year.
Wow.
The parade was. So thanks everybody.
All right. Any future board assignment requests? Commissioner Farr. Oh, still announcement?
Kind of an announcement.
Okay.
I lament that we have no local Veterans Day parades that are that match. Well, no, very few match Albany's Veterans Day parade, but doing something locally. It's been kind of the history of this community to kind of lean away from that, and I hope that sometime in the future we can step back into it and make certain that people who have, whether or not we agree with reasons. And there are lots and lots of reasons. My father-in-law, who fought in Okinawa, was the most vehemently opposed to armed conflict. That's not what it's about. It's about men and women and others who have chosen to leave their family and serve. And I wish we could do something a little bit more in Eugene. The other thing, and now I'm going to skip that one.
Since you brought that up, Commissioner, I'll just note, because it just occurred to me today, would have been my father's 100th birthday.
Oh my gosh.
And he was a World War II veteran who served fighting the rise of fascism in France and Italy. And like I've mentioned before, he was on Anzio beachhead and also a little bit of time in Morocco. And later joined and was a very active member of Veterans for Peace until he died in 2012. So, thanks.
Good. Good on him.
Any future board assignment requests? Seeing none, no assignments to review. In the course of our meeting this morning, we gave some direction to staff, and so we don't need to call those out as assignments in particular. Any other business for the good of the order before we adjourn for today? Seeing none, that is all the business we have for today. Just a reminder, we will be meeting in Harris Hall, but down on the floor in work session format with trainers from the Oregon Government Ethics Commission for an annual training for elected bodies at 9 a.m. and it's anticipated to last until about 11:30 tomorrow morning. So at the sound of my gavel, we'll be adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow.